Whenever I talk about a movie failing or succeeding at the box office, I'm usually talking about how much money it actually made. Because like it or not, that's what the studios pay attention to. I mean, that's really their main concern, is to make money. And if a movie doesn't make money, even if it's a good movie, they're not going to make more like that. And I'm not talking about like a Killers of the Flower Moon 2 or anything like that. I mean, just kind of movies that appease that type of audience. And by all accounts, Killers of the Flower Moon is a good movie that people liked. I mean, A- cinema score, 92% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. So, I mean, people did receive this movie pretty well, but it only brought in $44 million globally during its opening weekend, which this article does point out that's good for a Scorsese's movie when comparing it to like Shutter Island or The Departed. But it's not good when you take into account that this cost $200 million to make. And you look at this paragraph in this article, the $200 million budgeted movie represents a bold big screen bet for Apple, which until now prioritized streaming over theatrical. This marks the widest release ever for a movie backed by a streaming service. It's unclear when the film will land on Apple TV Plus, but it won't be for at least 45 days. So you can look at that and see like, okay, well, Apple TV tried to venture into theatrical releases, the first streaming service to really do a big theatrical release like this, and it fails at the box office, which means streaming services probably aren't going to do this in the future, right? Well, not necessarily, because you look at this article from the Hollywood Reporter, and this is from May of 2020 when a lot of this dealing was going down around Killers of the Flower Moon, and it talks about how Paramount was initially supposed to produce this movie, but Paramount was stuck only wanting to spend $150 million on this movie before Apple came in and decided, like, we'll spend $200 million on this movie because that's kind of the budget that they were looking to actually get for this movie. Like Scorsese and his people were looking to get for this movie. And listen to this. For Paramount, elements of the arrangement will ensure that it faces no financial risk, but also very limited upside. And that's because Paramount is still staying on as the distributor of this, because Apple TV, I mean, even though they've financed movies, they haven't really done any of these wide theatrical releases yet. So they needed help with the distribution of it. And that's where Paramount picks up the slack, but Apple still has to fund most of the actual budget of the movie. The deal instantly makes Apple a big player in the prestige film business and may also signal that going forward, the streaming service will compete by embracing the kind of full-on theatrical run that auteur directors crave, but that Netflix cannot and will not provide. And that goes in line with directors like, let's say, Quentin Tarantino or Christopher Nolan, not necessarily them only specifically, but directors like them who won't make movies for sites like Netflix because they like the theatrical experience. They make movies for theaters. And if Netflix is not going to give them a wide theatrical release, then they're going to choose to pass it up. And it's like, that's the problem with a lot of these streaming services, because they don't really have a shortage of people who are willing to produce movies and TV shows for them. But there's still a limit on the type of directors who will work with them because, yeah, they want those theatrical releases. Well, Apple is signaling with this, like with Martin Scorsese, he's like, no, we'll give you a wide theatrical release, because Scorsese is also a big auteur filmmaker who wants to have that cinema experience. And if he's willing to work with them and get what he wants, not only that, but they're also willing to give him the budget that he wants for this movie, then that could send a signal to some of these other filmmakers that, like, if you want to make a movie, come make one with Apple Studios and they'll let you do what you want to do, which seems like a pretty good deal in my opinion, which is a kind of a change of pace for a lot of these streaming services like Netflix and Disney Plus, for instance. I mean, they've kind of been defined as more. I mean, that's the best way to describe their platforms, is they're just trying to produce more content, and that's how they kind of boast about it, is like, we have more stuff than everyone. We're constantly have new things being added to it. Apple TV seems to be taking a different approach where they're kind of going like, we have better quality stuff, or at least that's what I'm getting out of this. They're trying to say we got better stuff. So if you want to make better if you want to watch better quality stuff, or if you're a filmmaker who wants to make better quality stuff, you come over to Apple and we'll do that for you. And we'll even give it a wide theatrical release. This article from Bloomberg even highlights their strategy. I mean, this is from March of this year. What they're trying to do is like spend $1 billion a year on films to break into cinemas. And that's not just a $1 billion buy. I mean, a $1 billion buy per year for this stuff. So they're willing to actually finance movies and big budget movies to put out in theaters because of it draws attention to their platform. Apple Inc. Plans to spend $1 billion a year to produce movies that will be released in theaters, according to people familiar with the company's plans. Part of an ambitious effort to raise its profile in Hollywood and lure subscribers to its streaming service. Now, scrolling down further down to the article, while Apple has agreed to theatrical releases in order to please talent and outmaneuver competitors for projects, the company also views theaters as a way to build awareness of its TV Plus streaming service. If the company is going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a Scorsese's movie, it wants to turn it into a cultural event. Apple TV Plus is estimated to have between 20 million and 40 million subscribers, fewer than rivals such as Netflix and Disney Plus. Apple still hasn't figured out how it will distribute these movies in theaters. The company doesn't have expertise internally to release movies in thousands of cinemas worldwide at once, which is why it has approached third-party distributors, and kind of like what they did with Paramount for Killers of the Flower Moon. But when you take all things into consideration, with their goal being that not only obviously they want to make money off of these movies, but when you think about it, Paramount was saying we only plan on Killers of the Flower Moon able to make $150 million, because that's kind of, I mean, like, at least for them, that was what they thought of, is like, okay, $150 million for this movie, which is what they figured, like, this is what we can expect to make from this type of thing. And then Apple looks at that and be like, okay, well, if we give you $200 million, that's like making the movie, and it's $50 million for basically advertising their platform. Because if you were to spend $50 million, because these companies like Apple that try to advertise Apple TV Plus, I mean, it costs a fortune. I mean, it's tens of millions a year. So Apple's deciding, like, well, instead of just spending like 10, 50, $100 million to just advertise, I mean, just that's money just spent and gone. You're like, why don't we spend 50, 100, $200 million on movies that kind of serve as the same thing? It gets a wide theatrical release that pleases the talent. It gives a chance of actually making some money at the box office. But even if it doesn't, the money that it loses could just be factored in, like, that's just the advertising dollars. But by doing like a movie in this manner, it's almost advertising, but with the chance of getting their money back, which seems like a decent strategy, in my opinion, if that's really what they're going for. Now, is this sustainable for them? I mean, they're a big company. I think they can take the hits for a little while. I mean, obviously they can't keep losing money consistently just to try to drum up publicity for their platform. But I think in the short term, at least while they're trying to get their foot in the door and try to situate themselves, this might be a decent strategy for them. And as a result, like, everyone involved with this seems to be happy. I mean, you get Martin Scorsese, he gets to make the movie he wants. Paramount, who's distributing it, I mean, they're not really losing anything, so they're fine. Apple, they're advertising their platform and they're making some money on it. So this really does seem like a win from a situation that almost seemed like a complete failure on the surface. I mean, just looking into it, I mean, when you see like, oh, Killers of the Flower Moon only made $44 million on a 200 domestic or globally opening weekend on a $200 million budget. I mean, like, I was quick to say, like, yeah, that's a failure, but maybe that might not be a failure after all. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.